Hey guys, this is Randi, and on today's episode, Kathryn is going to interview me, and I'm going to share with you my story and my inspiration behind starting the Uplifting podcast. I'm going to share with you one of my darkest, deepest secrets that I have not really shared with anyone else, to really share with you all why I believe so strongly in the power of owning and sharing our story. So I'm so excited for you all to hear this and for you all to be on this journey with us on the Uplifting podcast. So let's get into the episode. Hey y'all, it's Randi. There is a trigger warning for this episode. If you are listening to this episode and you feel triggered, please just go ahead and skip forward to the next incredible episode. Thank you so much for listening. Welcome to the Uplifting Podcast with your hosts, Randi and Kathryn.
This is a space for powerful women to share their story and to be real and raw about the truth of living your life's purpose.
Any topic is fair game. We check gossip at the door so we can focus on building community and collaboration.
This podcast will help you discover your individual power and give you the tools to live your most uplifted life.
So let's find out what's uplifting you today.
Welcome to the Uplifting Podcast. Today's podcast is going to be a little bit different. We're going to introduce my lovely co-host, Miss Randi Lee. We're going to dive more into why she wanted to start this podcast and her mission behind life and this podcast. So why don't we just dive right in? So Miss Randi, why don't you tell our beautiful audience what you do and a little bit about your story?
Yes. So I am a self-exploration coach, and I work with women to help them own their story, and in the process really help them discover their life's purpose so that they can increase their income and their impact. So a lot of how I discovered my life's purpose comes out of the struggles that I went through growing up. I have struggled with my weight all of my life, and even looking back, like in high school, I wasn't necessarily fat, even though I thought I was fat. I just didn't look like all of my other friends. I wasn't 100 pounds. I was like 150 pounds, but back then I thought that was fat. And so I really struggled to find a place where I fit in, to feel like I had a place to belong. I grew up in a family that was very religious. My family is Mormon, and I'm not Mormon. And so I, even at home, didn't feel like I had a place to fit in. And so my whole life, I was just searching for acceptance. And, that caused me to really get into really toxic relationships with men, to toxic relationships with other women, and to really, I at one point wanted to take my own life. I struggled with disordered eating, and just, really had a horrible relationship with myself because I was constantly trying to change who I was externally in order to find that love and acceptance that I was searching for. And when it came down to it, when I got out of a really, really horrible relationship back in 2016, it took really me being at rock bottom in my relationship with myself to discover that the only person that I needed to really worry about and the only person's acceptance that I really needed was myself. And I had been searching for it in all of the wrong places, when what I really needed to do was find myself. And like I said, I had lost that over the course of my lifetime by trying to change who I was to fit in.
Yeah.
And that's why I really am so passionate about helping other women own their story, because again, I was ashamed of my story. I was ashamed of all of the things that I had gone through, the mistakes that I had made in my life. I've been arrested several times. I have struggled with addiction. I again, lots of horrible relationships with men. And I thought that those things defined me. And I thought that those things made me less worthy. And once I really owned those parts of me, those really dark and difficult parts of me, that's when I discovered my life's purpose. And that's why I'm so passionate about helping other women own their story, because I believe that our story has power. And when we own that and when we share our story, it builds this connection with other women, with even other, it doesn't have to be just women, because when we're vulnerable and when we're real, that's really when deep connection is formed, not from trying to change ourselves externally and trying to compete with other people and trying to, put off this persona that we are something that we truly aren't, because people can see that. People can, tell when you're not being real. And again, it's not going to build those relationships in your life that you're truly looking for. And it's not going to allow you to feel fulfillment. And fulfillment and happiness really comes from owning your story. And I believe discovering your life's purpose.
Awesome. So you touched a little bit on this as far as like your passion about helping women discover their story. What was your biggest inspiration though for wanting to start this podcast in particular?
Well, like I said, I just believe in the power of storytelling. I have seen how sharing my story has completely transformed my life. I'll apologize ahead of time. Sharing my story always makes me emotional. And that's why for so long I didn't share it. It's because I knew anytime I would share it, I would get emotional, and I felt so much shame around that. But I really believe in the power of sharing our story. And when I had my first live event back in August, and the live event was all about how to own your story and empower your life through loving yourself and loving your body. And it was my first live event. I've never hosted anything like this. I just started my coaching business 6 months ago. So back in August, this was like 4 months, 3 months into my business. And so it was kind of like, who am I to be doing this? But when I showed up, I was worried that people weren't going to show up, but not only did people show up, but they showed up on time, and they were eager and so ready to learn and absorb, this information that I was there to provide. And I realized, again, just the power in sharing our story and how that empowers other women, and to see the women there who were so hungry for a space to learn how to be real and how to be authentic, and to get past this bullshit of like, you have to lose weight and you have to do this, and like, this is the ideal standard that we have to all live up to. I think that women are sick of that, and women are looking for something different. And again, because every time I changed myself on the outside, I never found happiness. And I know that other women have discovered the same thing. So what happens when you've tried literally everything possible to change who you are on the outside and you don't find happiness? What then? And the answer is, you have to turn inside. You have to look within you. And so often we're scared, like I said, of that darkness that we all have within us. But until we get comfortable exploring that darkness, we cannot discover our light.
Oh my God, exactly. I don't really have anything to follow up with that, because that's just beautiful. However, I will ask, I'm kind of touching on the darkness. That's actually a perfect segue. What do you think I don't even want to call it darkest moments, because there is light and dark, but what struggles have you gone through that have been most powerful in this transformation for you?
Yeah, so, I'll be honest with you guys. I never really thought that I would share this in public or with people that aren't in a safe space, but I do believe, like I said, in the power of story. So I'm going to share with you guys one of the darkest parts of my story, and that is that I've had 2 abortions. And I never thought that that would be somebody part of my story. And the fact that I've had not 1, but 2 was really, really hard for me. But it literally was the catalyst to bring me to where I am today. The toxic relationship that I got out of in 2016 was because of this abortion, and because of, he didn't want to support me in having this baby. And it really was at that point where I had to look within myself and realize that not becoming comfortable with who I am, not accepting who I am, was what had led me to that point. trying to change who I was, trying to be accepted by men who didn't ever deserve me, is what led me to that point. And that was really the darkest part of my story, but the thing that has really led me to where I am today. And, I know that so many people have, their own opinions of abortion and what that means and about the people who have them. And I hope that maybe through sharing this, it'll dispel some of those beliefs. And I really truly believe that until we hear other people's stories and understand what they're going through, like that's the only way that we're going to understand some of these taboo topics, which goes into why we started this podcast. Is I want to create a platform that allows women to share their stories like this. I've only shared this story in my Women Speak Circle, which is a public speaking circle for women. I only felt comfortable to share that with them and with another group coaching program that I'm in. But again, it's only been in these safe spaces. But it was only when I shared that, because until that point, until this year, 2018, I have literally kept that within me and have not shared it with anybody in my life. And so it was really in sharing that and owning this most difficult part of my story that created so much inspiration for this podcast and wanting to talk about things that we don't talk about, because it gives us such a deeper understanding of the things that I think so many of us struggle with. And we find connection in those struggles and realize that our stories are so much more alike than they are different.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, you're welcome.
That's huge. I mean,
Yeah.
And that's kind of the reason why we're doing this, is so we do have this safe space for us, for you all to hear, for our audience and our interviewees to share that conversation. Because like what you said, it's these taboo conversations that we just aren't talking about. You didn't talk about that for years. And what did that do to you,
Yeah, it creates so much shame, right? We feel so much shame when we hold these things within us. And I'm such a huge fan of Brene Brown, and she has transformed my life. But, she always says that shame cannot stand being spoken. And so when we speak these things and these experiences that are wrapped in shame, the shame cannot stand it. And it immediately is diminished when you speak your truth. And I know that this podcast is going to be so powerful for not just the women sharing their stories, but for all of you who have the opportunity to hear their stories, because it's going to allow you to take what you learn from their stories and apply it to your life and realize that you are not alone in the struggles you're going through. And that I think that what it also does is it creates a bigger picture for what you believe is possible. Yeah. And that's really my goal with this podcast, that it opens all of your eyes and your minds to what is truly possible. Yeah. Because you are limitless. And the only person that's limiting you is you. And so that is what Kathryn and I, are so excited to share on this journey with you all, is just so much transformation and insight on how you can really live your most uplifted life.
So I also want to we've talked about the struggles and the story of how and why you've got here, but you kind of touched also on your new coaching that's happening. What do you see for the future with your coaching, with your events? Like, what is the ultimate goal in all of that?
Yeah, so my ultimate goal is to really host retreats and live events here in Hawaii, to get women together where they can share their story and really feel empowered and help them discover their purpose. My vision is to be on a stage speaking in front of hundreds of thousands of women, sharing my story to empower them to live more into their truth. Like I've said, sharing my story has transformed my life, and I just want to continue to share it and empower other women in the process.
Yay. Is there anything else you want to touch on? Any other questions you wish I would have asked you?
No, I think that this is really, I'm just super excited to share this journey with all of you listening, with Kathryn. I know that this is not only going to transform everyone who is listening, but it is going to be an evolution for Kathryn and I. And I am just so excited for you all to see this evolution take place. You guys, this is our very first episode. So I want you guys to just witness. You guys are part of this process and this community that we are building, and we're just so excited for this.
And last question, what are 3 things that you can give to our audience right now, changes that they can make to create an uplifting life right now?
So my first thing, like I've said, is to own your story and to start sharing your story. You don't have to feel like you have to be like me today and share the most deepest, darkest secret you have. It doesn't have to be like that, but you can start to show up more vulnerably in your life and to start to share even small things. And I promise you, when you do that, you will start to see the power that comes from owning and sharing your story. And the second thing that I believe is really practicing gratitude, like practicing gratitude on a daily basis. I think so often we live in a state of scarcity and believing that, you know, somebody's accomplishments takes away from our own, or that, you know, somebody who may look better than us is taking away from our own beauty, and that couldn't be more false. And when we live in that state of scarcity, we can't create abundance and create the things that we want in our life. Yeah. And you attract what you focus on. And if you're always focusing on what you don't have in your life, you're going to continually attract what you don't want into your life. So practicing gratitude allows you to focus on what you have and to attract more of what you want into your life. And that has been such a huge shift for me, is to realize that I have absolutely everything that I need in my life. And my cup is so full, and that's what allows me to give to others, which brings me to my third point, is serving others. I really believe that if you want to feel better in your life, do something for somebody else. Today, open the door for somebody else, smile, pick up the tab for the person, you know, behind you in line at Starbucks. Whatever it is, small act of kindness, serving others, coming from a place of service, I know will allow you to live your most uplifted life.
Woo! On that note, damn! Thank you, girl. Thank you guys for listening. We appreciate it. You can find Randi, you can follow her links below for all of her social media. We'll see you all next time on the Uplifting Podcast. Thank you for joining us.
Bye, guys. Thank you so much for sharing a piece of your day with us.
Please rate and subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform you're listening to us on.
To continue the conversation, follow Kathryn and Randi on social media. Our links are listed in the show notes.
We can't wait to share another powerful story with you next week. And until then,
stay uplifted.